Hey gang. This week, well, I'm going to admit this is kind of fun for me, this kind of stuff. So this one's for me. We're going to play a slow Texas blues for Stevie. Why for Stevie? Well, because I thought that the first line, maybe not so much the rest of the solo, but the first line kind of sounded a little bit like Stevie Ray Vaughan. So why not? It's a Texas blues. Why not? Slow Texas blues. All right, anyway, this is what it is. I love playing this kind of style. I can play a long time, just jam out and have some fun. So at the end of the video, I've given a different take. Actually, the first take, this was the second that I just played for you. This was at the end of the video, there's the first take. And you'll see that there's some common things that I do. The beginning's the same in terms of the lick. The end is the same in terms of the lick. But in between is a little bit different, so you can check out to see what's different. I have included the tab to what I just played in the beginning. I think it's pretty close, but because this was improvised, I'm going to emphasize sort of the thinking on the solo and where I was going rather than exactly going through note for note on the fretboard. Of course, you can do that from the tab and get that from there, but I'm going to emphasize my thinking during the lesson. Okay. Enough yakking. Coming right up is a lesson note for note. As always, if you like this one, please give it the thumbs up. Would appreciate it. And if you haven't yet, subscribe for a couple of these every week. We will see you in just a second. All right, gang. Let's go over this. I would say note for note, but I'm not sure I can do that because it's semi-improvised. So what do I mean by semi-improvised? Well, I knew the first line I was going to play. I knew maybe even the second line. And I knew the last line. I knew where I was going to end up, but everything in between is kind of, I felt the outlines of it. I didn't play it totally different, but it's not exactly the same. And a lot of it is really just kind of played by feel. So I did tab it up, and you can find it in the tab. And I'm going to do my best to give it to you line by line, but I'm not so sure I can. All right, here goes. All right. Boy, that last line, it's really kind of on a knife edge, isn't it? I'm trying to do sort of a slide lick, and if you just get it off a little bit, boy. All right, Statesboro Blues there. Okay. So I think that was pretty close, actually, to what I played. It's not exactly what I played, but I thought it was pretty close. So let me take you at least through some of the highlights of what's going on there, what I'm thinking as I'm playing it. All right, so starting out with a grabber type of lick. Let me do that better. All right. So one of the things I learned, or I heard in a guitar talk from Rick Emmett, is he said, I really focus on that first note, and I want to grab everybody's attention if I can. Now, sometimes we're going to grab it with a whisper. Here we're grabbing it with a shout. Keep a lot. That's the thing I think was kind of a Stevie Ray Vaughan type of lick. That note right there. which is an A, right? Over an A chord. It's not the most original note to play, but guess what? It works. And you're really putting a lot of emphasis into that vibrato, but ending up on that minor major third thingy that we do so much in the blues and tweaking it. I think that's a cool thing to do. So, you know, starting from that extended blues position and coming down into the regular blues box, all right? The second lick is also a lick that I commonly play, something like that, over that 2 chord, because those notes all work on the 2 chord, on the D, really well, and it feels like that first slide in that first lick, right? So in the first lick, we're coming off of the. You see how I'm doing a very fast slide from that 9 to the 7, and then in the second lick where I play this. That's reminiscent. That slide is reminiscent of the first lick. So there's a lot of commonality of here. I'm giving the listener at least something to grasp onto. Okay, that's at least how I'm thinking about it. It feels kind of like not quite call and response, but there's something similar to it. All right, now that's in the quick blues, right? So it goes from A7 to D7 back to A7 for 2 bars. Over the 2 bars of A7, I'm mostly hanging out and giving it space. All right, so I do a couple of different things. One is I do a straight minor pentatonic filler. I'll play that better, right? So that is really simply playing a minor pentatonic. And I think I trail off as well by at the end pulling it off and going back to that 7th, that flatted 7th. That's an affectation I've had for a long time. I just like that sound. All right, so that's one little spacer, and that works over an A7 chord. All right, and then the next one, I'm really thinking chords, and here's where I'm starting to think chords. And I play this, which is also a spacer lick. All right, again, it's just this kind of a cramming lick. I'm trying to cram it in there, cram a bunch of notes in the end, and end up at the major third, so of that note, or of that chord. That again, we're playing over an A7. So I'm hammering on to that third on the 3rd string, right, from the 5th to the 6th. That's that major third. And then I'm playing on the string below and ending on that, but I'm really cramming it in as much as I can. I'm only picking that once. I'm actually hammering on to the 5th string. Right? So I could pick it twice. So anyway, whatever works for you. But I'm leaving lots of space and then doing things quickly. So it's I don't know. It's setting a mood, I suppose. All right, so here we go. So you've heard that one a bunch of times too. I went down to the major third. Now I'm going to come up and play that. This is a classic lick of doubling that note that you come up to. And here I'm just kind of hammering on to play that chord, right? The A chord. That's an A chord on the first 3 strings. And then for this note, I'm just going to double it on the 2nd string. But instead of getting here, I'm going to slide it to get there and give it vibrato. Okay? All right, now I know the next chord is a D7, and I know it's coming up very soon. All right, so what I'm going to do is I play this, which again is in that minor pentatonic. And notice how I'm bending it, not a whole step, maybe a half step, maybe a quarter step, but not, and maybe even a little bit more than a half step. But I don't want to bend it a whole step because I'm going to resolve it when I get to that D. Now, am I thinking that when I'm playing? No blanking way that I'm thinking of it, okay? There's no way that I'm thinking of it, but clearly it's coming out in my play. So I love that sound, how it sounds when you resolve it. Right? It's not quite to that D, but now it is once I play that D chord. All right, so that's a common thing that I'm playing. Now, if you think about it, over that chord, now that we're going to the D chord, these series of things I play are really just sixths, and all I'm really doing is I'm playing around with the chord itself. I'm not thinking scales at all. I'm just thinking the chord. I mean, those are all notes of a D7 chord. Right? All those are D7 chord notes, and so all I'm doing is playing around with those. And now I'm back to the A. Okay? So here, again, I'm not really necessarily thinking this, but here's an A right here. Right? So here's our D triad, and here's our A triad. So I went from thinking scales to thinking chords. It's interesting how I think maybe it's all blended together. Anyway, so over that A chord, then I'm back to that. And that's an A, right? That's the third of A. I'm bending up to it. All right, now I'm going to give it a harder edged again thing. So I am thinking just briefly about a scale pattern right here that I use commonly. And, oops, we'll try that again. Okay, so that's over that A chord, and it's got kind of a hard edge to it. Right? So anyway, so that's what I'm using. I am thinking about that scale pattern, and so I'm bending, and I'm using that bend to go into sort of more of a harder edge to blues from that major sounding. Right, that all sounds majory sounding. Now I'm going to go to a minor sounding thing. Oops. I'll try that again. Right, that's a very common thing that I play a lot. I love that sound. That's just bending from that G to the A, right? Emphasizing that A. Now when I go to the E chord, the E7 chord, that's just an E, right? That's an E note. Another E, right? Now it helps to change the position. That's kind of an interesting move there. But here I'm ending up on an E. So it's not genius to play an E note over an E chord, right? But it sure sounds good sometimes. All right, now I'm going to play over that D chord. And right, because blues goes from that E to a D, and hey, lo and behold, there's the third of my D, and I'm back to that same sort of pattern that I had before over the D chord. All right, so that, I will admit, I was thinking of a scale right there. And I was thinking of the G major scale. Now, those of you in the know that if you're playing over an A7 chord or an A note, and you use a G major, you use a G major over that chord or over that note, that's going to be a Dorian mode. So playing over an A7 chord, that's a Dorian mode that you're playing over that. So anyway, so that's what I'm doing. I'm playing G major over that. And that's all I'm doing. So if you're following the tab, that's there. And then I'm ending on just the same, you know how we did that for the D? Well, this is the same thing for the A. Same sound, right? That's called a sixth. because those two notes are separated by sixths. So let's see what I do over that A chord for a little bit. Again, basically I'm just... Now I'm back to my my minor pentatonic scale. Right? And then on a turnaround, it goes from, that's over the A, and the turnaround, it goes to E again, right? So remember, the turnaround's going to go like... Right? So over that turnaround where it goes to the E, I'm thinking this. I'm just thinking, hey, how can I walk up to the E? But instead of doing that, I do admit I'm being a little bit tricky here. And remember, I said I knew the first lick, I knew the second lick, and I knew the last lick. Here's the last lick. I was thinking, I was playing around with something, and I came up with something I thought sounded a little bit like Statesboro Blues, but you're not using a slide. And I thought that was kind of cool. So I thought I'd try it, and it's like this. I just thought that kind of sounded a little bit like a slide guitar. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm playing, see, here's an E chord right here with the root on the fifth. Okay, and then this is just our classic, one of our two classic bar chords. That's that there. Well, if I play this flatted note, if I take the E and I flat it, right, and I think about bending it up a half step so it's not flat anymore, that's kind of like a bend makes it sound drunk or makes it sound wobbly or something like that. And I play the top of the chord right here, the third. It's going to sound okay, but it's going to sound a little bit dissonant, and that's what I'm looking at. And that's how I think about a slide. You know, it kind of feels like it's wobbling around. And then coming back. I always think that that kind of sounds a little bit like a slide. At least I imagine myself playing that way. Just a little bit of a half step bend that you're pre-bending, pulling that down, and then going down two steps to that on the third string to the fifth fret, and bending that up again, maybe a quarter or a half step, and then ending up on the root on the fourth string, seventh. Put together, it does, to me, it sounds a little bit Statesboro bluesish. And give it lots of vibrato. All right, well, anyway, that's it, gang. You know, you can see my thinking. I'm not really thinking all that much here. I'm thinking a little bit minor pentatonic. I'm thinking chords, definitely, and following those chords. So it's really, I think, really important, at least for me, if I want to navigate where the different chords are. If I can play them in multiple places around the neck, that really helps me figure out where I want to bend or where I want to move to, and gives me comfortable notes that I can play and be reasonably sure I'm not going to hit a real turkey, you know? And that's it. All right. Well, anyway, like I said in the outro, there's another example of it. You can check that out if you want to. But otherwise, that's it. Hope you got something out of this one. See ya. All right, gang. Well, there you have it. There's my thinking on that solo. Don't forget that there's another version of it coming up in just a second. Until next time, we will see you on down the road.